On February 6, 2025, after 33 years on death row, convicted serial rapist and double murderer Demetrius Terrence Frazier was executed by nitrogen hypoxia at Alabama's Holman Correctional Facility, becoming one of the first inmates in U.S. history to die by this controversial method. Pauline Brown, 40, was found dead in her Birmingham, Alabama apartment on November 27, 1991, the day before Thanksgiving. She had been shot in the head and robbed at gunpoint. The scene showed no signs of struggle beyond the brutal final act. Her bedroom was intact, her purse partially emptied, and the room was quiet when family found her body, fully clothed, lying still, eyes open. But Pauline's death was only one chapter in a longer, darker story. Just months earlier, on September 1, 1991, Demetrius Frazier committed two separate and an armed robbery in Michigan. In each case, the victim reported a forced intrusion, a weapon, and sexual violence. Frazier operated alone. He was calm, deliberate, and vicious. The crimes occurred within days of one another, signaling either an escalating psychological unraveling or a calculated hunt. Then, in March 1992, a 14-year-old girl named Crystal Kendrick was found dead near an alley in Detroit. She had been shot in the head. Investigators learned she had been lured into a secluded area under false pretenses. Frazier admitted he had tried to rape her. When she resisted, he executed her. He was arrested for Crystal's murder and during interrogation voluntarily confessed to Pauline Brown's killing in Alabama. In under 7 months, Demetrius Frazier had committed at least 2 rapes, 1 armed robbery, and 2 murders, all against women and girls across multiple states. The pattern was clear: sexual violence, followed by fatal violence. His victims were vulnerable, alone, and targeted at moments of privacy. What he couldn't control through fear, he destroyed with force. Despite his confessions, investigators remained haunted by one question: were there more? The confession to Birmingham authorities was critical. Frazier gave details only the killer could know. He described the location of the apartment, the amount of money stolen, and the sequence of events. Though DNA testing was limited at the time, the victim's injuries and forensic evidence matched his story. His violent record in Michigan supported the prosecution's case. In April 1993, he received 2 life sentences for murdering Crystal Kendrick. By October, he was sentenced to 2 more life terms and 60 to 90 years for the 2 earlier Michigan rapes and the armed robbery. In Alabama, his trial was a formality. He faced a capital murder charge under a murder during robbery statute, an aggravator that made the death penalty eligible. But the trial exposed the cracks in the system. His court-appointed defense received only $1,000 for out-of-court preparation. They called no witnesses. They made no attempt to challenge the confession or investigate mitigating factors. Instead, they conceded his guilt in front of the jury. He was convicted in 1996. Yet the lack of a robust defense and the reliance on a confession without DNA left questions lingering about due process, race, and whether justice in Alabama had been too swift to kill. Frazier's appeals spanned nearly 3 decades. Demetrius Frazier never publicly expressed a motive for his crimes. In court, he gave no explanation. In appeals, his defense did not argue insanity, mental illness, or personal grievance. His legal team later argued that he should never have been transferred from Michigan, a state without the death penalty, to Alabama for execution. They also challenged the racial composition of his jury: 10 white jurors, 2 black, and a 10-2 vote in favor of the death sentence, a process now outlawed in most of the country. One of his appeals targeted Alabama's method of execution itself. Frazier's lawyers claimed nitrogen hypoxia, a method still in experimental stages, posed a risk of prolonged suffering and violated the 8th Amendment's ban on cruel and unusual punishment. None of the arguments persuaded the courts. In January 2025, Alabama Governor Kay Ivey signed his execution order. The Supreme Court declined to intervene. Demetrius Frazier's last meal was fast food from Taco Bell: a beefy 5-layer burrito, chicken chalupa supreme, 2 beef crunchy tacos, nachos with dip, and a Mountain Dew. He ate in full. At 6 p.m. on February 6, 2025, Frazier was led into Alabama's execution chamber and strapped to the gurney. A mask was fixed tightly over his face. This mask would not deliver lethal drugs, but pure nitrogen. an odorless gas designed to replace the oxygen in his lungs, causing unconsciousness through hypoxia. The state initiated the flow of nitrogen. Within seconds, witnesses observed visible distress. Frazier's body twitched, his face contorted. He began quivering and appeared to gasp for breath. This continued for 4 to 5 minutes, far longer than traditional lethal injections, where unconsciousness typically sets in within 30 seconds. At 6:36 p.m., after 26 minutes, Demetrius Terrence Frazier was declared dead. In his final statement, he said, "What happened to Pauline Brown should have never happened." He then criticized Michigan's governor for allowing the transfer and left one last message: "Detroit strong. I love everybody on death row. Let's go." His final moments projected remorse, rage, and allegiance. Remorse for the victim, rage at the system, and solidarity with those awaiting the same fate. But the gas mask left one final image: a man grimacing in silence, his breath stolen not by a bullet, but by a system designed to kill without blood. Was justice served or simply completed?